Yo, what up? It's Doenut, and you tuning in to all yo Illuminati news. And we are here with a special guest, my good friends Matt Ehret and Cynthia Chung, and we're going to be going over some secret societies, hidden worlds, the strange world beneath geopolitics, Edgar Allan Poe, so much. But first, how are you two doing?
Very good.
Yeah. Always a pleasure to be with you, Donut. This is going to be fun.
For people who don't know that are on my channel, my Wicked Smart journey, you could thank these two for it. I ran into a Matt Ehret article called "The Rockefellers, the MK Ultra, the Clintons. What do they have in common?" And I started listening to this guy, and I was like, "He's so smart. I want to get smart." So and then from finding Matt Ehret, I found Cynthia Chung, and her video is one of my best videos on the platform, where we dive into just awesome stuff. So highly recommend you all watch all the videos that we've already done. You're gonna love them.
Thank you. That's a very nice plug.
I could keep going. I could keep testimonial.
No, we'll splice this out and put it in our on our website as a endorsed by Donut.
Yeah, and we already got a super sticker. Thank you so much, sweet Biddy. And every time someone sends a super chat, I feed the kitty cat. So just a heads up, we're probably gonna be feeding that kitty cat all night.
Cool. I didn't actually know we were live streaming right now. I thought this was
I'm sorry.
recording. Oh no, that's good. I'm
live. It says live in the top corner.
Of course.
Oh, my bad.
No, that's good. That's great. Okay.
Yeah, we live stream, and there's some breaking news happening right now with the DC National Guard thing that happened for Thanksgiving that Cynthia covered today over on her Substack. Highly recommend y'all go to her Substack. I'm part of both of your Substacks, and really enjoy how much work you both do on it.
What news did they come up with just now regarding this shooter?
Well, I guess it's not really new news. My friend told me yesterday, talking on the phone, that the guy worked with the frickin' CIA.
Yeah. Cynthia put out a crazy post just going through an introduction of what that means this morning.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What was it called, Cynthia? It was like the 0 units or something. You said that this guy was a part of with the special forces in Afghanistan for like a while.
Yeah, nothing. I mean, because I went on a few news platforms, and so nothing is like, I think, concrete in terms of the name of the unit. But it's for sure, like the CIA director, John Ratcliffe, has said that Ramanullah Lakhanwal was for sure, he confirmed that he was working with the CIA, and that the term, his term with the CIA ended when they supposedly, they left Afghanistan. So he didn't, it seems, specify for how long he was working for the CIA, but there are other sources that say that he was working for a paramilitary unit when he was working for the CIA, and this was alongside U.S. Special Forces. Other sources are saying, and that this was for a very significant period of time. And there are relatives that say that it was a 10-year relationship he had with the CIA, U.S. Special Forces. And I just put it out because it fits right into the kind of stuff that I've been talking about extensively on my Substack, which is the fact that the Green Berets, U.S. Special Forces, are something that were created by the CIA director Allan Dulles, and they were never they were never military, right? Because originally CIA and military were supposed to be separate. CIA was supposed to be a desk job that was collecting intelligence, and there's a whole story of this, after World War II, Italy was going to have its first elections, and the CIA justified them coming into basically sabotage the Italian elections in favor of the Christian Democratic Party, which was known to have a bunch of Nazis in it. Later on implicated also with Gladio, which is NATO's secret army. So they were allowed to extend their purview past the desk job into going into the field. And increasingly, Allan Dulles and Frank Wisner set up their own kind of rogue unit within the CIA that was doing a whole bunch of paramilitary clandestine stuff that even members within the CIA more broadly were not aware of. And so the Green Berets, U.S. Special Forces, which originally was created during World War II to mimic the British unit, they wear the berets as a tipping of the hat of the British unit. And this British unit, the SAS, have been implicated in the Khmer Rouge atrocities. Like they have very, very dirty hands. They were also involved in a lot of the terrorist acts in Ireland. So Allan Dulles revived this program of the U.S. Special Forces under Edward Lansdale as well, who was pretty much the head of the CIA Saigon mission in Vietnam.
Was this under? Was this under Eisenhower, or when did this get revived?
Eisenhower, because Eisenhower is a military man, it was harder to do things behind his back because there were a lot of people in the military who still liked him. Whereas Kennedy, the military didn't like him, right? Like the military and the intelligence didn't like him. So unfortunately, Kennedy needed to have some inroads, right? And because he didn't, it was easy to do a lot of things behind his back. So there was a lot of stuff that started to move much more quickly under Kennedy. But Kennedy was not aware of what was going on. Actually, Colonel Fletcher Prouty goes over this in detail in his books, where he says Maxwell Taylor was the guy who was brought into the Pentagon but was working for Allan Dulles. And it was during this time that the military was completely rewritten, the training of the military to be counterinsurgency, which is secret warfare, which is permanent warfare. Like you are always at war secretly, to the point where even the US government official elective figures don't know what is going on. So this guy, Lachenwall, is just another example of US Special Forces works for CIA. He has been at least fully confirmed that he worked for the CIA, and he was in a paramilitary unit. This seems to be a for sure thing that was involved with a lot of atrocities. They were known for being quite brutal and barbaric. And
they were called the CIA death squads that would go into
Lachenwall's unit in Afghanistan was known particularly to be quite bad. And a lot of them have psychological issues, of course. So this is just, again, tying into something that is continuing to this day, that these types of things are not, this was not a lone gunman. This wasn't some Muslim radical that came in because of the loose immigration laws from Biden and is now, trying to get revenge on the Trump administration. He was under the purview and was created by the CIA, working with the U.S. Special Forces. And this is the thing that Prouty also talks about, is that part of the retraining and the revamping of the U.S. military under Maxwell Taylor during Kennedy's administration was that they were going to train U.S. special units with people who were native to those countries. And the training was not just military, it was on all levels of society. So politically, economically, educational, cultural, information space was now all supposed to be controlled by people who were trained by U.S. Special Forces. This was the mandate. And again, Prouty goes over this in a lot of detail. It's well documented. This isn't a hypothesis. And so when U.S. Special Forces leave a country, they have these kinds of units that are in place that are the native people of the country, but they are not friendly to their own country. So this is something that has been happening, and it has just spread all over. It's created a lot of problems. Color revolutions are able to be orchestrated because of these sorts of things. And I don't know if you're able to, Doenut, share on my article of Lachenwall on my Substack. If you scroll down, one of Zelensky's former advisors, Oleksiy Arestovic, he used to be one of the main advisors to Zelensky Zelensky from 2014 to at least 2022. And if you keep going down, it's like a big image. Yeah, there. So in this interview, he actually says that he models his own idea of the Ukrainian paramilitary units off of ISIL tactics, which also brought into business and governance. Again, just showcasing how this is an extension of the U.S. Special Forces mandate to control all levels of society through these kinds of paramilitary tactics. So it's quite serious. And for people who want to know more, they can refer to the paper on my Substack Through a Glass Darkly. It's not a very long paper, but I have a lot of links because I have a lot of longer papers I've written on this. And there is also an implication of CIA, U.S. Special Forces creating an artificial migrant crisis in Vietnam that allowed for American entry into Vietnam that became the meat grinder of the Vietnam War. They had created the northern, they basically encouraged a whole bunch of northern Vietnamese and dumped them. They transported a lot of them directly, and they just dumped them in the South. They said that they were going to provide for them, and they didn't. And of course, it created chaos in the South. And then they started to say like, oh, it's the terrorists, it's the communist Vietnamese and all of this sort of thing. And it created such a shit show, but it was all orchestrated by Lansdale's Saigon mission.
And that's the whole Phoenix program too. That's part of it.
Yeah, that was also what allowed Operation Phoenix, which was a form of I call it a human laboratory, where they did a whole bunch of experiments that would creep you out. Again, Prouty has an interesting chapter in his book that I have on my Substack called the magic box with the red eye. And they literally had a black box with a red eye, and they would put into these villages, like these really simple villages, right? Where these people only knew like rice paddies and fishing and this sort of stuff. And they're saying if there's any like people in the force who want to attack you, because of course there's like northern people who were dumped and they are starving and there's no water or anything. If they attack your village, press the red button. And this was actually, they were doing these kinds of weird social experiments. And then the Americans would often come and they would just shoot at everybody in these kinds of situations. But Prouty had also said that people who were coming to these villages, giving these black box with red eyes, there was always an American, a Filipino translating, and a Catholic priest. I kid you not. That's what Prouty said in his book, which is very interesting because there is a Jesuit connection to it, which people can read in my paper, How the CIA, U.S. Special Forces Manufactured a Migrant Crisis in Vietnam. More on that. So yeah, the Jesuits were totally involved in this too, because it was a Catholic, Ngo Dinh Diem, sorry, I can't say his name very well, who was supposed to be the overnight president of South Vietnam. He was a Catholic. He was tied to the Benedictine order, and he was also working with the Jesuits.
Was he the one who was assassinated as well in '63, or is that another guy?
Yeah, him and his brother were assassinated about 2 weeks before Kennedy. Because they were also they also wanted to end the Vietnam War. So they had been on both sides and they were both taken out.
And so this documentary you just released, very good production, and the narration was also really well done. I don't know what microphone you're using, but it's way better than the $25 microphone. And this sort of is this operation that was taking place even with the Native Americans. I think you were saying with the ghost dance, having them just dance, and they were told by some sort of like handlers that if you just do this dance, you're going to survive the white man's bullets or something like that. Is that like kind of just like a...
Yeah, I
sometimes I hear what I want to hear, so that's why I got to...
No, that is accurate. And I mean, like maybe to make it clear for people how we're going into ghosts, how this film can talk about Operation Phoenix and the ghost dance, which might seem like totally separate subjects, but Operation Phoenix was also like, it's a social experiment, and it seems that when MK Ultra went underground, the cults that started to reemerge, a lot of this was coming out of, I think, the kind of social experiments they did. Operation, by the way, Orwell, for instance, used to work for the British military. And there was also forms of this sort of Operation Phoenix sort of stuff that they were doing in, I'm forgetting now, Malay. I think it was Malay. And his book, 1984, is based off of his own experience as a policeman in Malay, I believe.
No, wasn't it? Malaya, right? It was like, that's like Nepal today or something, right?
No, but
No.
they were even saying that was the blueprint for Operation Phoenix, what Orwell was originally a part of. And he was a policeman, but he was also involved in like electroshock therapy, and they were doing torture techniques already as early as that time. And so Martin Seif's, I think it was his daughter, came up with this brilliant insight that 1984 O'Brien and Winston. So O'Brien's like the overseer that's working for like, you know, the state, and Winston's the kind of, you know, disempowered underdog sort of hero, but not really. They're the same person. They're Orwell. And so Orwell had been implicated in torture, but then I think he wanted to genuinely kind of push away from that. And he was, you know, troubled by what he had been through his whole life, but he was always within the kind of shackles of the British Empire, and he always was working for British intelligence, it seems, to the end of his days. But it's like he couldn't exit out of it, even though I think he wanted to. So anyway, that was a blueprint before Operation Phoenix, and it seems like Operation Phoenix was used as a form to also start like the cult phenomenon. In the sense of the ghost dance, it's also another form of like psychological warfare, where you have the Jesuits, you have the Smithsonian Institute, which are implicated in this. It's a millenarian connotation. And the reason why I bring it up is also because Brett Weinstein, who's talked about in this, is tied to the Smithsonian Institute. So it's relevant from that standpoint. But they had committed a psychological warfare on the Native people by convincing them, using aspects of their culture and then weaponizing their own culture against them, to believe that they were the chosen people, and that when you know, that the new age was going to happen soon, and that they should put on these ghost dance shirts and do the ghost dance, because, you know, dances were considered very important for them. You could think of it as a sort of mass prayer, maybe, right? In a mass prayer, you're going to manifest a kind of reality, or you're going to bring the new age with a mass prayer. And so they were told that if they wore these shirts and they went into battle, they would be invincible to bullets. They would be completely invincible. And before this, Tecumseh also went into battle with that promise, and it totally obliterated his forces as well. And I suspect, amongst other things, that was a really, one of the focal points was to get their warriors, their best defenders of the people, because there was this mass push to put them in essentially concentration camps, right? Like they were told to, you can only be in certain perimeters, you can't hunt or do anything outside of these perimeters, and the land in those perimeters was not fit for agriculture. So it was effectively a starvation, you know, campaign. And even the meat rations that they were promising, they were severely under, you know, delivering on those things. So it was a famine, like that they were purposefully starving them, like the kind of stuff they were doing to India. And so people were getting the natives are getting very desperate. And they had warriors, and they had already defeated Custer, right? So they showed that they could actually, you know, mess things up quite a bit. And I think that this was a crazy, sophisticated propaganda campaign that involved the Jesuits. The Mormons were very central to this. The Presbyterians were also involved in it. And it spread throughout the country within 1 year very quickly. And all of these groupings were encouraged to basically rush to their death. So I think it was a way to get rid of the best warriors, and then the people were really left defenseless. After that, there's also the disgusting aspect that the Smithsonian Institute wanted to gather and collect their culture before their extinction, because they knew that these stories were going to be useful in the future for how they want to rewrite things. And, they always want to control the narrative, and they want to do a kind of hodgepodge great narrative that we're all going to just like worship. And that's the dream, is that we're going to worship, whatever they put on that pedestal eventually, kind of thing.
The history writers.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like what sparked that whole composition in your mind, was when you heard Brett Weinstein telling this audience of American Christian right-wingers that Ben Franklin would want them to phoenix the Republic. And he kept on invoking this phoenixing specter, and nobody thought it was creepy, but we were like freaked out. And you knew, because of your work, I guess, in Operation Phoenix and the broader mystery cults and Rosicrucian connotation of what that means, that there's something more to it, right? And so the parallel is really stark. That's what struck me when I read your book and the composition you put together for the film, is that the same psychological profile that they organized in the natives to get them to think of this end time situation where they would be divinely endowed with like protective spirits who would help them fight the evildoer white man, at which point somehow those who did die would be reborn forever. But ultimately they would mostly not die because they were like invulnerable because of the ghost shirts. And then I guess this weird Messiah-like figure that was crafted for them was going to come back. So it had a lot of parallels to what a lot of the American Christian right has been induced to believe is also the sort of inevitable end times, that they have to like go and phoenix themselves to overturn evil, and somehow good is going to happen. But you could clearly see that they're being set up to self-exterminate, to just like become just essentially tools of the deep state and become the excuse needed to clamp down with further government top-down intervention.
And I wanted to quickly add too that the Phoenix connection is also connected to the Tavistock Institute. They called themselves, like when they did a purge of their own, because the Tavistock did a self-purge as well, and they called it Operation Phoenix. So like over I think it's about 2 decades before the Operation Phoenix in Vietnam. I think it was in the 1950s, the Tavistock Operation Phoenix, which is in the 50 years of the Tavistock Clinic by H.V. Dix, he calls it that. And he was a prominent member of the Tavistock Institute. So it really tells you how important this word is, and how heavy the implication is for someone like a Brett Weinstein to say this during a Save the Republic, gathering. And he's saying you need to phoenix the Republic, which is a very bizarre wording. And then you see the whole history of it. And he worked for the Smithsonian Institute, which is directly tied to the U.S. Army. He said himself the only reason why he was in Panama working for the Smithsonian Institute was because the U.S. Army and the Smithsonian Institute have it's considered an extension of the U.S. Army. Back since the days of Ghost Dance, the Smithsonian Institute was tied to the U.S. Army. So he was there at the invitation of the U.S. Army in Panama when there were U.S. military bases that were more clearly active in Panama, although they are still active with the U.S. South Front organization.
And then his brother in this documentary shows that their bloodline serves multiple different purposes. And this is like how the elites sort of camouflage, in my opinion, that they come off as they're part of this group. Let's say, I'm part of this republic, let's do this. But then his brother is like pushing the migration crisis with the United Nations.
Yeah, and it's hilarious too, because people believe the very thinly veiled, I feel, drama of like, oh, but Brett and Eric aren't very close as brothers. And, they probably weren't even talking to each other. So it's just a coincidence that all of these things are fitting into place. And Eric Weinstein was actually working for the United Nations with a pro-immigration policy that was acknowledged in his report was going to be a form of weaponized immigration. Mm-hmm. He was bringing up the facts of how this was not going to be beneficial to the native population in the way that this immigration program was going to occur. And yet Brett Weinstein is the one who's going on Tucker Carlson, spreading the propaganda that the immigration problem is coming from somewhere else. I feel
not only that, but he's even saying that it's being directed by America's nemesis, China, by sending immigrants through the Darien Gap in Panama,
right,
which
right.
he got
because
a guided tour for the green.
Because they found a cartoon of a guy on a motorcycle that drove all across all of the islands, which they actually play in this Tucker Carlson video as proof that the Chinese are behind it. Because there's some kind of like travel video or something, and they have like a guy on a motorbike who's huge on a map, who's just going through like from Asia to South America on a motorbike, and not somehow a detailed plan of an invasion.
Yeah, and it's the meme warfare. You simplify something with a meme like that, and the masses don't get wicked smart and look into stuff, and they just believe whatever works. I learned about the China psyops through Matt. I don't know if you worked on the video, but it was about George Soros being kicked out of China, and then I was like, what? And then the color revolutions, and that broke me free from so much programming, because there's so much programming in America to divide like crazy, probably because America is one of the last like branches of freedom in a sense. I don't know.
Matt, you take it.
Well, I mean, America represents so much, and I mean, I think it's created a lot of sleepless nights for the oligarchy, which definitely wanted 1776 to go in another direction completely, right? But I think that's the problem. Is a lot of Americans, they tend to believe the narrative, the national story that's been cooked up for them, that the victory of 1776 resulted in a new country of freedom, and it's that simple. And they miss all of the nuance and all of the foundations of the fifth columnists that became the deep state, this entire oligarchical class that always remained behind, embedded and loyal not to any of the institutions of America. America didn't succeed because of these creatures. It existed in spite of them, and they were always deployed. These what became the leading families. We know of a wide number of names. We don't have to go through the leading American families, but they were always loyal to the system of the City of London, to the older nobility of the old bloodlines of Europe that could trace themselves way back into the Roman and into even earlier empires. So that's what's been bringing in all of these different nefarious occult agencies, secret societies, and working to subvert the gains made by the United States from within. And I think the Jesuits played a big role, and that was a big part of both your documentary and your book, Cynthia, right? Was that the Jesuits, the Mormons, the Freemasons, and operatives with the military Smithsonian Institute had this collusion together in organizing myths, like enmeshing themselves, especially the Jesuits. They were really good at that, at enmeshing themselves into the indigenous populations that they would encounter in North America, probably since the days of the Habsburg, the Spanish Empire. I would imagine they were already like doing a really good job at like really going native, forgive the pun. And they would gain the trust of a lot of the native groups, the First Nations groups all across the Americas. But somehow they're so good at being slimy that they would begin to even start, like, forgive the language, fuck with the people, like fuck with these different groups and induce them to adopt new stories that they would modify. And they would start like working to weaponize different native groups against other native groups as well, and started playing them even against the settlers, and the settlers were also being played as well to get weaponized against the natives. So you had these like hidden hands manipulating the show from above, both working both sides. And I just love the way that you weave that all together. But maybe you could talk about quickly the Mormon and Jesuit aspect and all of that. I don't know if that's something that you could speak to a little bit.
Well, I wanted to just quickly make a note too, that they understand that culture is the most important thing. And I think that we maybe in the West take it for granted because it's like, what is culture now? Because, an idea of tradition is not very strong, but you can't really have, I think, a self-identity as an individual, or even an individual located in a community of whatever size or a nation without culture, because there has to be an idea of who you are and what you're connected to. Even if it's the most banal, garbage, it's still, you have to have something to hold on to anchor yourself in. And so I think that we really take it for granted that our culture has increasingly become like a form of TikTok, Netflix, watching, because I mean, at least that's where I'm getting my understanding, is people who are still interested in a form of storytelling, which has been the core of human connection and dialogue for like centuries. It really is, I think, at the core of our fabric of as a people of anywhere in the world, is storytelling. It's been totally taken over by these Netflix sort of components. And if you look at it, if you think about it, the better ones that have a bit more sophistication and complexity and thought, like they're a bit more profound, they took these things from somewhere that originally had more of a development and thought, like it's sort of collecting a whole bunch of things and hodgepodging them together, and you almost create a super virus as the form. Like, it's so engaging. Like, I do not deny it. Like, I like to watch these things, and part of it I'm telling myself, like, I want to know the psychological warfare. I want to know the game. I think you're like that too, Donut. But
you should check out this Pluribus show.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can tell me about that at some point, because I don't know what that is. But yeah, I spend a lot of time, watching anything that I think is a well done production. I feel like I do want to watch it because there was a lot of thought put into it. And I know the kinds of people who are behind these things. So if they put that kind of thought into it, there are hints as to like, what is their dream? Where do they want to lead us to? Because that's ultimately what it's about, is where do they want you to be led to? How do they want to reshape your concept of identity and how you're connecting with the whole? And obviously there's a lot of, dark stuff that's coming into play. And there's a lot less of like a positive aspect of who we are, which people have to realize that's a form of disempowerment. A lot of people, I think, get sucked into the darkness because it's like, it seems so cool. It seems so edgy. It seems like you definitely have to be a more strong person to go into something that's dark. That's for sure. But don't think that by constantly and I have to also, take some medicine myself, because my job is mostly to look at dark material. And I myself sometimes find myself going like, wow, I'm kind of spiritually suffocating because I'm not bringing in enough positive things that are truly empowering for me. And I think we really take it for granted that it is really important that you do take in things that are empowering in a real way, not in a self-deluded way like Marvel Comics or something like that. So when they infiltrate culture, that is not only the soul of the people, but that is the memory of the people. And that's one of the downfalls of the Native American people, was that they forgot their history. I think there's a lot of evidence to show that they did have a written language before. Like there's a lot of civilizations that there's proof that there was advanced civilizations with the kind of mounds that you find in America, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but it meant that the city and what needed to create these mounds, which had huge, buildings on top of these mounds, meant that the cities were actually quite large. There was a lot of artifacts too, showing like a sophisticated form of trade and these sorts of things. And something happened and it got buried. And we know, like ancient Greece, for instance, like they went through several dark ages and they totally forgot their history. Like that history is gone. The only thing we have is Homer, like seeing, oral stories for like centuries The people forgot how to write. So of course, like, it's not beyond, reason to think that the Native Americans also something like that happened to them in a dark age. And when you forget your past, you are totally vulnerable to something like that, this Jesuit Mormon type of operation that is so sophisticated that they can start building upon the incomplete construct you have as a culture. And they were known, the Jesuits were known to have added gods to the Haitian Loa. The voodoo, Haitian voodoo, it's for sure been influenced by Jesuit.
That's the crazy part, is that the story, you add in a couple things, like it's a game of telephone, and then we know that all the different like religious stuff, they will add in certain beliefs that change a whole paradigm. It's a paradigm shift by just changing a couple things. So when the collective is watching these shows that are force fed to us that you've covered, like the different cartoons leave everybody sort of sad, like that horse jackman and stuff that we talked about a while ago. But you left, I always bring up in all my shows how MK Ultra was a failure because the mind control couldn't get people with strong belief systems. They could shake out of it. And I think that's why that they're pushing so many different belief changing, like the shrooms and the DMTs and the LSDs and all that. They're pushing that because that's actually a way to change the autonomic nervous system, to put in new programming. But I always tell everybody that was dope.
Well, they make fun of the cults, like the Kool-Aid for the cults, and how like they could only have like, I don't know, really simple oatmeal or something, so that you're being deprived of nutrients, so you're more suggestible, right? So we should maybe think about, like, some of the things that are being pushed on society, like what you just mentioned, that are reshaping your nervous system, or even just encouraging you to have an increased suggestibility, which is increasingly like this. I think they started off with like many like smaller cults, and those were all social experiments, but for the ultimate goal to create one massive cult. That's the goal, is that everybody's in the same cult. And I wanted to also make clear, because we're like covering a lot, is that Tavistock's Operation Phoenix is so directly relevant in a way that is not at first clear with the Vietnamese Operation Phoenix, because it was all about the blank slate, right? Tavistock influenced MK Ultra, and it was this idea of trying to wipe the memory, the individual's personality clear, so that you could introduce another personality, right? That was the dream. But as you brought up, Doenut, that it never worked out that way. They tended to destroy a person's mind. Like, someone who has strong convictions is going to have strong convictions, and if you give them a lot of electroshock therapy, like they did with Paul Robeson, you're just going to destroy the mind. Like, so no one's like invincible, but if you have strong convictions, it's not like someone can just pour whatever they want into your head. Of course, there's all kinds of things like sleep deprivation and that can make you more suggestible. But at the end of the day, you're not going to just believe in something as a zombie. So this idea of like a clean blank slate is what they then tried to do on a societal level, right? On a nation level. That was Tavistock's mandate, was to move past the individual to a whole community, to a whole nation. So that was what the laboratory was in Vietnam of Operation Phoenix, was to try to wipe the sense of identity of the people in Vietnam, such that they could introduce something wholly different. It was also a failure, as you see with Vietnam. Saigon now, I think it's called Ho Chi Minh City. So,
yeah, these are great points. And just to throw out, I just watched a trailer for Pluribus the new show you just referenced, and I'll show it to you, Cynthia. I know you haven't seen it yet, but it seems to be pretty sophisticated, and as far as I could tell, it's like everybody but except 13 people somehow. Like there's some weird infestation of a virus or whatever, but it makes everybody so culturally homogenized around the world except for these like 13 anomalies.
I saw the trailer for that.
You did too? Okay, yeah.
Pretty good. I think you'll dig it. It's a good film. Like series. I'm liking it right now. But these are those stories. These are the stories like in the symbolism of the Rosicrucians, for example, and Edgar Allan Poe. I want to get into as well how these are stories that change people, and they also want you to not read Edgar Allan Poe. They want you to read the other guy. But like with the symbols of the Rosicrucians, you got a lot of phoenix symbols. Let's say for the Habsburg, they have the double-headed eagle, which is probably a phoenix. I've read, so I'm sure there's some occult symbolism going on too.
Matt, did you want to say something about the pelican symbol?
Well, I mean that there's a lot to say. What I'll mention quickly, and we'd see where we want to go for that. But that is the emblem used, or the bird used on the Stuart family crest. And the Stuarts play a big role, at least as one of the dominant families. Now, I don't know how disposable this family is. I don't know how high up on the echelon it is. It seems like the fate of many of their representatives, like their leading heirs of different thrones at different times, their fate doesn't end well. Let's just say that. It does seem to be there does seem to be some sort of a weird fetish around. Yeah, see, there you go. That's the
with the Order of the Garter belt.
Yes, the Order of the Garter belt. That's right. And they also use the image of the pelican feeding the babies. And there's a story that I don't remember fully of the pelican feeding the babies its own blood, so that as it dies, the babies survive. There's another version of it that I had read it as well, and I forgot the source because I'm still doing some work on this. That does parallel the phoenixing story too, where the nest does go up in fire and involves a male pelican and a mother. But I forget the details. All that to say, the idea of the periodic sacrifice of leading members, whether it's Charles I getting his head lopped off, whether it's Queen Mary as well getting executed and being used as well to overthrow Elizabeth, or there's a variety of beliefs that we can only kind of adduce that deals with using these Stuarts to usher in phoenixing operations. And one thing that Cynthia's been writing about has been the role of James I's daughter, Elizabeth Stuart, who became betrothed to the figure of Frederick the Fifth, Prince Elector of the Palatinate in Bohemia, and how both of them together were brainwashed and driven using Rosicrucian operations to basically usher in an Operation Phoenix in Europe. That was as a ritual sort of purgative violence to psychologically dismantle, destroy, like real shock therapy of the entirety of the European population, which had formerly been animated by a really beautiful idea of the Golden Renaissance, right? And the ideas that pulled humanity out of the Dark Ages, where the populations collapsed significantly during the Dark Age periods of war, pandemic. That was a real crazy dark spot. But there was this beautiful burst induced by new discoveries in medicine, in astronomy, and in beauty and arts and music, and really political freedom that had to be undone. And you could see how the whole oligarchy reorganized itself to just light a fire using the catalyzer of these two figures, on the one hand, who were induced to believe that they were going to usher in some new golden age. That was never the plan. But Cynthia, I don't know if you wanted to say anything about some of that work you've been doing based on how the 30 Years' War was launched as a proto Operation Phoenix of its own day.
I sent you an image by email, Doenut, of another pelican like Rose Cross by email because I didn't know how to do it quicker through the chat. But that's a loaded question that you just sent me. I don't know. Do we want to narrow it down a little bit more to like how to talk about this very large encompassing subject?
Well, how did the Rosicrucians play a role? How did the Rosicrucians guide or emerge onto the scene for the first time to usher in this burning of Europe? I guess is how I was thinking.
Okay, so that's the pelican picture you just showed there. If you look at it, it's feeding itself to the babies. So again, it's this an opposite sort of idea from the phoenix, right? Because the phoenix it lights its nest ablaze, which Bret Weinstein actually emphasized, by the way, in his speech in to Save the Republic or whatever it's called. The pelican is the opposite, where it's a voluntary sacrifice, and the Stuart line seems to have a relationship to this idea of voluntary sacrifice. So like in The Chemical Wedding, which is the third Rosicrucian manifesto, there is a lot of imagery and symbolism in that story of basically the multi-level initiation process before you get into this order of chivalric knights, which is called like the Golden Knights of the Philosopher's Stone, but it seems to be pretty much, connotating a Templar Knights of Malta order, they both come from Benedictine orders. Bernard de Clairvaux is also central in the story, which I'm doing a very detailed, long write-up because it's going to be a book eventually on my Substack. So it's a lot. It's too much for me to explain all in one shot. But so there is this idea of in The Chemical Wedding, the idea of transmutation of the soul, sacrifice is an element of this, and it has to be a voluntary sacrifice. And there is also a bird, component to this as well. So I think that the bird, which is, I think, a symbol of the pelican, is a symbol of like the Stuart family, but also maybe more broadly as voluntary sacrifice, just as a sideline for symbology. But the Rosicrucian movement was a psyop from what I've uncovered so far in my research. I'm relying a lot on Frances Yates' work, The Rosicrucian Enlightenment, although my conclusions are different from her. I think she's kind of favorable to the Rosicrucian movement, whereas I think it was a psyop. It was a setup to get people into a millenarian state of mind, get their hopes up. They like to really get people's hopes up really high, that the Habsburg oppression was going to finally be, contained with King James's daughter, Elizabeth Stuart, marrying the Frederick of the Palatinate, and then they became king and queen of Bohemia. And this was sort of like viewed as the ushering in of a new golden age of Protestantism, which was viewed as a utopian concept for a lot of people in resistance to the corruptions of the Catholic Church. But it seems like it was a complete setup. They were not king and queen for more than 2 years. It was like maybe a year and a half. And then they lost the war at the Battle of White Mountain. And when Frederick was offered the crown of Bohemia, it already belonged to Ferdinand of Habsburg. So this was obviously a declaration of war. And Frederick was encouraged to do this by the Archbishop of Canterbury and other very high-level people in England. I think that it was a complete setup for him to accept this crown, which was basically at that moment was the beginning of the 30 Years' War. And when they lost the battle at White Mountain, things got very ugly for Bohemia and Germany, and they were lit ablaze. It was a phoenixing, and a lot of people they become more radically mystical when you go through something like that as a coping mechanism, because you had such high hopes They even had this Heidelberg castle that looks like a Disney castle. You see like some of the drawings and like the gardens, and like they had apparently mechanical wonders, and these mechanical wonders could move, and all these sorts of wondrous things. It sounds like an Alice in Wonderland type of thing. And I'm sure people believe that there was a kind of divine magic, associated with this, and for it to all come crushing down so abysmally quickly and tragically. Like Heidelberg Castle was destroyed. They don't have not very many records of anything. I'm sure these things were taken and brought to, they're probably in someone's basement right now. Like Queen Elizabeth's basement has a lot of good stuff that, we're still not allowed to know exactly. She's got some of the works of Da Vinci, for instance. Like they've stole so many things around the world, and they're just like, yeah, we're going to just keep it for ourselves. But
Queen
anyway,
Elizabeth's basement, yeah, because I was thinking like the Vatican's got that archive, but Queen Elizabeth's got her own archive.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, but it makes total sense.
Yeah, like even in Da Vinci books, they have the stamp of the crown because they gave permission that it could a photo of it could be shared with the public, with the plebes. But anyway, so yeah, the Rosicrucian movement was a psyop, but then the radical mysticalness of the people worked in their favor to ultimately do, and they succeeded in a radical educational reform, which ended up the Rosicrucian Invisible College became the Royal Society of London and became a very real thing. And there was also socialistic communes that were started by Andre, the author of The Chemical Wedding. He's actually involved in socialistic communes, which I'm going to get into in a future paper. Francis Yates has already, done enough to showcase this is for certain. And Zinzendorf's Moravians were also involved in these kinds of socialistic communes, and there's a terrible like scandal of what seems to be acts of necrophilia. They were happening, at least with one branch, but the Moravians were also working with the Native Americans. They were actually with the Jesuits working with the Native Americans, which is an aspect I still have to explore. But
that's just mind-blowing, eh? Like the role of these Moravians as they penetrated the like Philadelphia and the early colonies of America in the 1720s under Zinzendorf. That just blows my mind, because they're clearly using Jesuitical methods that had been already applied by the Jesuits in manipulating different native groups around the world. So they're using the same method. They're enmeshing themselves. They're dressing like the natives. They're really, really winning the hearts and minds of it. But at the same time, like you said, in things like the sifting time scandal of the 1740s, they're demonstrated to have gotten into hard necrophilia, wound worship, like the idea of bridal
Christ, wound worship. Yeah,
the idea that the wound and the vagina are kind of the same thing, and they went into some weird stuff. But these are the groups that are interfacing with the Lenape tribes, with the Delaware, with the Mohicans of Philadelphia. They're the ones who are like getting really close and using these different groups, and then later on, the scandal is somehow dealt with, or people are just supposed to forget that happened, even though it's like so. Oh, I see well, just quick. The next generation, though, they're trying to, like the leaders of the Moravians, the Bohemian Brethren, or the whatever you want to call it, the hidden seed, as they call themselves. They're trying to enmesh themselves with the American revolutionaries, and they're trying to now take a role in shaping the outcome of what is this idea, this underdefined idea of what the republic is going to be. So they're very much at the nerve center, and they're generating things like, what's his name, John Wesley, who's the founder of the Methodists, who's like generating Methodism when he's in the Moravian like cult. And you've got Swedenborg, Emanuel Swedenborg, that guy who's got a whole Masonic church that was founded upon his weird philosophy and demon angelology, who's like also a Rosicrucian. It seems like, at least he's part of the Invisible College in England. He's a Swedish mercenary guy, espionage agent, Kabbalist, who's brought in to be a part of Christopher Wren's network at the Invisible College. And then this guy is all of a sudden part of the Moravians and generates this whole new weird cosmology that becomes the foundation of like UFO cults everywhere later for the next 200 years. But this thing is like so important, what you're zeroing in on in your series and what's going to become this upcoming book. It's really, and to see it dovetail with this, how these groups work as like the right-hand path to the Jesuit left-hand path, or vice versa, I always forget. But they're basically, as Francis Yates and you were documenting in your series, it seems like the Jesuits and the Rosicrucians, though they seem to be enemies, right? The Jesuits are using the Catholic power base of the Habsburg Empire to express their control and infiltration of the world, right? The Spanish Empire was the first empire in which the sun never set in the modern era, and it was soon under the control of the Jesuits, right after the Jesuits were created. And
right.
They were the ones like, but then they're also interfacing with the Rosicrucians. So they're creating this constricting environment of suffocation and no freedom and rigidity. And then the Rosicrucians are trying to capture all of those who are naturally wanting the oxygen of freedom, and they're falling prey to the different traps set by these Rosicrucian, figures promising, proto QAnon white hats are out to save the day and just have faith in the plan. And then everything's like lit on fire.
Like people, I thought that the millenarianism started, primarily by like the Methodists really pushed it forward, but it seems like the Bohemian Brethren that then became the Moravian Brethren after the 30 Years' War were really at the forefront of this. And Yates brings up that, nobody ever admitted that they were a Rosicrucian member, right? Because it was considered almost like it's a form of heresy, because like the Rosicrucians came out saying the Pope is the Antichrist, right? So it's not going to fare well with you if you say you're a Rosicrucian. But you had people like Robert Flood in England, who was he was like the most outspoken in England. That was pro-Rosicrucian works, but he was, denying it at a certain point. It was getting, I think, a little bit dangerous for him. And he said, listen, I even sent my this one particular work for the Jesuits to look at, and they okayed it. They actually said, yeah, you go ahead and publish it. So there's a lot of like, I go through a lot of these in my series, because like that picture actually, Doenut, I'm going to be publishing something next week to explain that picture. It is, you're going to love it.
I see a bunch of stuff already. And like, so like the Rose, the Tudor, the War of the Roses, like you got these two families, they're fighting each other, but they all marry each other. It's all a big psyop for the plebes to do the blood ritual. So like they'll marry, and this is that camouflage where you get all these different societies and groups and then people with the certain names, but they're all married into each other, and they're the left and right hand path. And there's probably 32 freaking petals on there. I wouldn't be surprised. And this looks like a double cross.
You'll be interested in what I come. And by the way, you should check out Trail of the Green Men. That is, his channel is nothing but it's a very small channel. He doesn't actually have a lot of views, but he goes through a lot of detail as to how he because I like basically what he found out is what I bring up in my article, and I source him. But he is the one who is coming up with all of the kind of symbology within these pictures. Yeah, because there's a lot of geometry as well. But in the case of the rose, it's the most clear cut one. I watched like a bunch of his videos, and you have to like. I think that he has a method, although at first it might look a bit crazy. I think that sometimes, and he says himself, like maybe it's nothing. But I think that there is something to what he's using as a method. But there wasn't anything so obvious, especially for an average viewer who's just coming into it, than that rose drawing with the bees. It's very explicit that there's something very dark and sinister in that image. So I'll leave that as a little tidbit for people.
Oh, snap.
Come on to my Substack if you want to know.
What a
And I
show
got
woman.
Matt and Cynthia's links down below. Make sure to go subscribe to the Substack. You're gonna love it. I'm subscribed, and their books are great as well. Get the books and go subscribe to their YouTube. Those links are down below. And once you like get into some of the symbols, it's like months will go by because it's so deep and so researched as well. Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, just a little something that is catching my eye is the 100 Years' War, because one thing that Frances Yates makes some allusions to, and I think she's correct in her Rosicrucian Enlightenment book, which is it's a pretty trashy but sophisticated rewriting of what the Renaissance and Enlightenment were actually about, and she tries to make the case that all of the advances in scientific progress were all caused by Hermetic and Kabbalist mystics, which is not true at all. Like they're the reasons why science was subverted by, it's not, she kind of turns everything inside out. But all that to say, she does make this connection, not just to the Rosicrucians and the Jesuits being like two sides of one thing, but also she makes a point that there's a connection between the Rosicrucians and the earlier order, the Garter, which is fascinating. It's really interesting because the Order of the Garter was created in 1348, the same year. And the Order of the Garter is it's like the highest chivalric order in the British system of awards and honors. You can't get higher than that. That's what uses also, you showed the image of it earlier on that has the pelican feeding the baby, or it's not the pelican, it's what is it?
Yeah, no, it is.
It's pelican, okay, feeding the babies in the nest. But that garter was set up by Edward III. That's the son of Edward II, who was trying to collaborate, it seems, with Philip le Bel, the King of France, Philip IV. And that was the king who took down the Templars, who organized in 1307 to take down the Templars, and also the reining in of the papacy. Like he put a pope in a dungeon, and it seems like that Pope Boniface I guess it was the 6th or something, maybe the 7th, was a defender of the Templars, and that was the period that the papacy had moved to Avignon out of Rome for 75 years. For a period, but it was all tied to this attempt to finally crack down on the Templar Gnostic satanic megastructure that had controlled by that time, right, in 1307, all of the banking of the world, of the known world, was pretty much dominated by the Templars. They were the biggest landholders. They controlled the piracy, the shipping lanes. The skull and crossbones appears to have been also rooted in a Templar ritual that itself goes back to an earlier Mithraic symbol. And Reza Giordani also goes through that in some of his books and lectures. And I think that that's very true. But the thing is, that was taken down, and that was not an easy thing to do. But you had a certain collusion, a certain conspiracy for what I think is the good. And it seems like Philip le Bel also, we were just in Avignon, Cynthia and I, a month and a half ago, and we went to this area and found that in reading, even though Philip le Bel is slandered as being this greedy French king who just didn't want to pay his debts to the Templars, and he burnt them as witches for witchcraftery and worshiping Baphomet and other things. He was really a lowly, pitiful king. Seems like he was actually the guy who declared war on the feudal lords of France. And all of the Norman barons that had earlier been used as Viking, the Northmen, right, that had taken big possession of a lot of France, they were used earlier on in the 11th century to take control of England and bring in feudalism. Well, the reason why feudalism stopped in France was because of Philip le Bel declaring war on the feudal barons. So he was actually trying to give rights to the people and end feudalism at the same time as he was taking down the Templars. And he was working to a certain degree with his enemy, because France and England were typically enemies, right, for a long time before and after, but they had a period of alliance, and Edward II and him were the key. The Templars were also illegalized in England at that time. They had to go underground. Some of them it seems that some Templars not only went to Scotland and worked with Robert the Bruce. Some of them went to Portugal, to Spain. Some seem to have gone to the New World. And there's a growing amount of evidence that's beginning to persuade me that there was a network of these Templars who are masters in cult creation. That's, I think, part of the secret knowledge that they brought. It wasn't so much, the treasure wasn't a physical one as much as an insight in religious engineering, I think, that they brought from the so-called Holy Land.
The New World, where is that?
I'm talking like Nova Scotia. I'm talking like Canada. Like,
okay. Would America be connected?
North America. Yeah.
I mean, the Templars it's all over America, symbolism, and they got all their different forts, like Nova Scotia. I just read this book on the ley lines, written by like a Masonic Templar. I mean, obviously everyone thinks they're a Templar if they're like Mason, but his book was really good. And he shows the different forts and castles of the Templars, how they were already traveling here, Nova Scotia and all that, and the symbols. I did one on Charlie Kirk, and you should check it out.
Please send it.
Really good. It's on just the ley lines and where his memorial was, the 33rd. I connected, but then I tied it to this book. It was nuts. Yeah. But no, it was. The Templars were totally in America and all of that. Like they're.
Yeah. And it changes, right? Like if you add what you just said, if this is true that they were in America way before it's commonly accepted that they were in America, which also includes the Knights of Malta, which are also big in Quebec. There's symbols in many of these older churches. That changes what Cynthia was saying earlier on too about the role of the Jesuits and how this religious engineering and myth making was infused into a lot of the native tribes that had first engaged potentially with Templars way before, again, people think that the Templars were here. This is like before Columbus. So that's also just an interesting hypothesis. I don't know if there's enough like material to really work with that in a more advanced way, but I think it creates a space for the mind to move and hypothesize, which is extremely potent. But back to I want to like strike on this point that I was just setting the stage for, is that when Edward III creates the Order of the Garter, and the first time he does it is like 1344. You read the ritual that he created, this chivalric ritual of multi-day feast where only the women were allowed in the castle to eat and the men had to eat in their tents. And then the second day was jousting, and they have like all of these rituals. It looks a lot like what's described in The Chemical Wedding as far as this courtly, chivalric set of initiatory rituals that take place before the big chemical wedding. It's similar in when you read the descriptions, even on Wikipedia, about what was being done as the inaugural thing, which also brought back the Round Table. He like Edward III had the Round Table movement as his sort of inspiration of this mythic Arthurian idea from the Grail, the Grail myths that were concocted as propaganda for recruiting Templar knights to go into forever wars in the Holy Land. So that was also a big thing in Edward III's mind. But what does he do immediately as soon as the Order of the Garter is created? He launches the 100 Years' War. That very same year in 1348 is the very same year he creates the Order of the Garter. There's only 25 members or 24 members, plus the Prince of Wales, plus the sitting monarch. So that's 26 members who are allowed to be members at any time, still to this very day. Like Tony Blair is a member. Now,
Tony
Alistair,
Blair.
Yeah.
Who's Tony Blair again? Why does it sound so familiar?
Yeah. So this
I know
thing,
that name.
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
He liked lighting fires in the Middle East, and he still does. So one thing that Gerald Gardner, who's the student of Aleister Crowley, one of his disciples who creates Wiccan, he has a book that I just picked up. I got it today in the mail, called Witchcraft Today. He wrote this thing in 1954, but he's got a whole thing, a thesis here, that Edward III is a witch, just like the Templars, and he's setting up the coven. So the Order of the Garter, he's setting up as two covens, because every coven has 13 members, like, so one head warlock and 12 witches. So there's 2 covens combined in the 26 membership of the Order of the Garter, and he's got a few other elements too. It's not just that alone. That then are tied to some idea. This war didn't have to happen, where all of a sudden he gets it in his head that he's going to declare himself king of France, essentially, and because his grandpa is Philip le Bel, who's the king of France, because Philip le Bel gave his daughter to Edward II. That's the father of Edward III, in order to like consolidate some harmony and peacemaking while they were doing war on the Templars. So there's like an actual blood connection to the king of France. Now he's saying, well, if I've got a blood connection to France, to the French bloodline of, I don't know if it's the House of Orleans, or I gotta verify which one. Maybe that's mine. Actually, it is mine. I'm gonna take it, and that's what kicks off 100 years of bloodletting. Like, we're talking probably 80-90 million people dying in a world that probably only had like 600 million people. Like, the amount of death caused by that, it's like on the scale of the 30 Years' War, where like Europe lost like a third of their population in bloodbath for 30 years of Protestant versus Catholic war. So it seems to be similar. There's still more work to be done, but it seems like a very similar cult working, and the fact that Order of the Garter seems to be the guiding thing that is what's used to set up the Rosicrucians in its next iteration, just like the Rosicrucians set the stage for what their next iteration is going to be with the Freemasons. There's definitely a connection. And this fixation with like Solomon's Temple, this whole like idea of like restoring Zion, whatever that might be in the minds of these religious engineers, but they always have that same idea of an end time scenario of some lighting of the world that we all have to believe is inevitable, that God wants the world to be lit on fire at some point. And then it's just, how do we relate to that fact, right? Are we going to relate to that by being like the Crowleyite fire starters? Or are we going to relate to that by being he wanted to get in the action too. Black cats are ominous in witchcraft.
Lord, he's gray.
No, black cats are the best. They're smart. Was that picture of the cat eating food at the beginning? Was that a picture of your cat?
Yes, that was Chan, and I do got a shout out to the super chats and the super stickers. Thank you, Witzius. Witzius asked, Cynthia, have you read John Norman's Ghost Dance? I guess that's when we were talking about the Ghost Dance. And thank you, Witzy. It sent a bunch of super chats. I appreciate that. And 8 Lavera 8 sent a super chat. Appreciate you. We feed that kitty cat. Oh, now he's laying down. Yeah, he's that's Chan. Oh God, he's a big boy. He's a big boy. Look at that guy.
He has like this Chinese anime cat vibe to him. Eh?
He doesn't he look? Yeah, that's why I named him.
Or Japanese anime, huh?
I don't know if I named him after Jackie Chan.
Really?
Yeah, because I love Jackie Chan. He's like my favorite.
I knew he was and
I used to have another cat named Jack. Like Jack used to have 2 cats. So Jackie Chan.
Cool. He's so malleable.
Yeah, I had someone who named their cat Chairman Meow.
They're the best. I freaking love this little guy.
Yeah, he looks like a toy right now.
Yeah, he gets medicine twice a day because he has asthma, so he gets an inhaler on his face, and he loves it. He's very happy with it. But yeah, this is he's really
he's so malleable.
Like a toy.
Yeah, he just got home. He goes out and comes back. And he's a good guy. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
So there's some other stuff in the news too. Not to just jump around totally, but I wanted to get both of your takes on stuff, which is all kind of connected to everything we're talking about. Did you see that this commercial of the psychological operation released the new video, and it had like Pepe in the image?
Wait, that's the 4th PSYOP group, right, in Fort Bragg?
Yes, it's the Fort Bragg one. I wanted to just get your.
Yeah, they did an update because they had a creepy earlier iteration of that.
Yes.
The Ghost in the Machine, but now they updated it. Yeah.
Yeah, this was
Yeah,
the Ghost in the
you could
Machine
totally
one.
play that if you want.
Yeah, I'll play it. I don't have audio, but that's fine. It
Oh, you can't have audio?
My computer just I can't figure out how to get audio playing
Do you
on
want me to
it.
play it? I'll play it maybe.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it might get like a copyright or something. But you see
Oh.
all like you got the leaflets falling. That's the social engineering, and that's exactly what's kind of going on Twitter, right? It's like a huge social engineering operation of what was just like when Elon let out the location thing. That was like a field day of like you got like pro America or accounts that are like in Pakistan or um, even just a bunch of like crazy stuff. And that's like literally was. And then you got this logo, which is like the Andrew Tate logo, and then they had a Pepe. I'll play this part right here.
Yeah, I didn't notice the
Oh,
Pepe, but
yes. So I saw someone post it. It's right there. It looks
oh
like
yeah, look at that. Eh? Yeah, the QAnon meme wars idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's not cool. No, it's creepy stuff. And Fort Bragg is the worst. I mean, Fort Bragg is just like they had like 130 murders at Fort Bragg in the last 10 years alone. Like there's
What's going on there? Like you got people just going crazy and all
yeah.
these like events, like there's always tied back to Fort Bragg, even with the assassination attempts and stuff.
I know. Yeah, you even had like members like Green Berets who were because it's prolifically like active in criminal operations, drug running. Like they're really really big, and these special forces soldiers go through some crazy stuff in Afghanistan and doing covert operations all over the world. They're doing some really bad, unhuman murder, and they tend to be on like heavy drugs. A lot of them are, at least, and they're God knows what kind of social engineering experiments they're put through just being in the military as well. And yeah, like one guy got his head cut off like 3 years ago because a drug deal went bad, and it was done by other like special forces members, and they tried to hush it up. But no, it's a crazy place to work. I can only imagine like what it's like day to day.
Yeah, I just looking at this is pretty nuts. Like if there was 5 of these,
Yeah.
goes into like the X symbol with the
Oh yeah. No, there's only
the what's it called? The Galton board.
Dalton board.
Yeah, so I talked to this guy, James Tunney, who's really good. I highly recommend checking out that video. But he goes into the 5, like on the dice, which makes the X logo and how it's like a military formation. And he ties it into the Galton board because the Galton board is like an X, and Galton's like connected to the whole Darwin and transhuman kind of stuff.
Huh.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting. And then there's this other thing too that's on the news.
Well, it's strange that you're saying that because like that's also Huxley's X Club, right? And Galton was a member of Huxley's X Club that was all about promoting or reorganizing all of science and infusing Darwinian axioms into all of science as it is known. And that's what the X Club tried to create. So yeah, that Galton connection there is also interesting.
And so right here, since this article is how I learned about you, what do Lawrence Rockefeller have to do with the UFOs and MK Ultra? Mr. Beast now, there's a Rockefeller connection with him. And speaking about culture, Mr. Beast is like the biggest YouTuber. Mr. Beast announced partnership with Rockefeller Foundation. So right there, interesting stuff. I don't know if you've looked into that at all. Oh, it looks like a donut back there. You see the tour? Yeah, you did a video on the donut.
Little shout out, little subtle shout out to Donut Factory. Yeah, that's fucked up. I mean, I shouldn't use that language, but yeah,
No,
that is very.
fine.
Yeah, it's okay. Okay, I wasn't sure if this is a family-friendly show, but
It's
yeah,
like,
they're really trying to just rebrand something that has gotten such like rightfully bad publicity. Like, there's not a lot of love for the Rockefeller Foundation, so the fact that they're partnering up with this YouTube celebrity in this loud kind of way, it's gross. I don't know how many people are falling for this. Like, is this something that younger people are thinking is great now?
yeah, I mean, Jay-Z, he's like the Rockefeller record label. Like the plebes love it. Like the, I think I'm not very optimistic with the society. I think they told what to think and they love it.
Huh.
But I don't know. I'm kind of negative.
Yeah. Hey, it's Harry Ludwig. Hey, Harry Ludwig, how are you doing? He just donated $5 in the chat. We met him in Calgary. He's a nice guy.
Hi, Harry Ludwig. Let's feed that kitty cat. He sent a bunch of super chats. Maybe he thinks, I don't know. Maybe he thinks it's your channel that we're streaming this on. So I don't want to take up much of your time. I could talk to y'all forever. You guys are the best. We didn't even get into Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh yeah. Let's say a word about Edgar Allan Poe. Let's do that.
Okay. All right. Good. Yeah, that's because the thumbnail had him, but I'm gonna probably have to retitle this because really dope topics. This is great.
Yeah, Edgar Allan Poe is against all of this stuff. No, let's do this. I've got a trailer here that I could just, if you could bring up my screen, I could show people the trailer of this new film that we just made with our friend Dave Goslin, who, as it turns out, we were surprised to find out that he actually has a penchant for filmmaking and playing with AI in a really creative way. So he proposed to us to make a film out of some of the discoveries that I had published in this book last year, Edgar Allan Poe's Final Mystery, Revenge of the Mystery Cults, Volume 3. So at the end, there's a few chapters just going through the ritual murder of Mary Rogers, and who knew Edgar Poe, and who Poe infused into one of his most important short stories on the murder of Marie Roger, a Dupin story. But there were so many anomalies that really bothered me that caused my mind to go on a journey that pulled together a very strange and unexpected picture about what Poe was actually combating, pertaining to, like, why was Mary Rogers murdered at the location of this Sybil's Cave. You and I talked about this in a previous show, like many months ago. And like, what is Sybil's Cave? What does that mean? It's right next to this place in New Jersey that's also called the Elysian Fields. It's owned by this high-level, magnate, this banking, industrial, rail, and steam engine magnate called Colonel John Stevens, who commissioned the building of this Sybil's Cave where she was killed, and her fiancé was killed there, who also knew Poe like 2 months later. So what's up with that? And so obviously the whole journey going into the Rosicrucian Templar takeover of the U.S. establishment, intelligence, and culture, which Poe was fighting, became a part of the story. The networks, the intelligence networks that Poe was a part of, became part of, like, good patriotic intelligence networks that were also often literary geniuses, became a part of this story. Like Cooper, what's his first name? James Fenimore Cooper. Yeah, James Fenimore Cooper. Cynthia did a great class on Cooper's The Bravo, where Cooper exposes the operations in Venice. Venetian intrigue was totally exposed in this so-called fictional tale of Cooper. He didn't just do The Last of Mohicans. He did a lot of these sorts of things. But he was a friend of Poe. They were working together. They were part of a society called the Society of Cincinnatus. And so this thing, like, went all the way back into the medieval Black Mass ritual zone of the Apennine Mountains near Naples in Italy, which is where the 11th Sibyl was reputed to have sat, and also where they say is a Rosicrucian location where there's caverns, tunnels underneath this Apennine Mountain. in a town next to the basically the place where Benedict, who formed the Benedictines, was born with his twin sister Scholastica in the 6th century. So this is a high domain of occultism, and it just came in, and it just kept on layering itself. And we made it. And our friend Dave said, "Hey, can I make this into a movie?" And we said, "Well, give it a shot, try it out, see what you come up with." And it turned out to be amazing. So we're going to do another one very soon in January as a follow-up to this. But here's a little trailer for those who want to watch it. It's currently behind a paywall on Cynthia's Substack and on my Substack. But people can watch this little trailer here. So I'm just going to press play, and we'll go from there.
And if you make it full screen, that'll be good.
Oh, yeah, right. And I'll jack up the volume.
The name Edgar Allan Poe conjures images of the macabre, murder, insanity, and self-destruction. But is this the real Edgar Allan Poe? Despite countless documentaries on the life of one of America's most celebrated writers, one inevitably encounters the same cartoonish narrative of a disturbed soul plagued by haunting visions, substance abuse, and fascinations with morbidity. The true sublime depth of Poe's mind and the strategic political nature of his most famous works is almost always buried under the slew of Halloween-grade caricatures and morbid characterizations. But that's all about to change. What follows is the true story of America's purloined soul, Edgar Allan Poe, and a true account of the double murder of one of America's foremost literary geniuses, first in body, then in memory.
Yeah, and y'all gotta watch that. You can watch it over on the links below. You gotta click the link below. So it's a video. Okay.
Yeah, I was having trouble trying to stop it.
All we're crushing it with the documentaries, like the George Soros documentary woke me up from the China psyops. You put out the UFO occult documentary. You guys be pumping out content. In the Substack, I'm starting to really enjoy, because you can hit the play button and not even read, where you can actually listen to it, which is a nice feature that they got over there right now.
I didn't even realize that you could do that with any Substack article, is just press play and listen.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to do sometimes because it doesn't always appear, and I can't figure out why, but it appears like the first time you click it, but then it disappears. But they have a feature in it where you can play. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, that's good. Huh. Yeah, we'll make we'll send you the links so that you could share them with your audience, so that people could have the option to watch the full film. It's like 100 minutes. It's by far our longest movie that we've done. And
I've watched half of it. It's great.
Cool. Yeah, no, it's gonna get crazier, and like the crazy layers just keep on like building and building to a peak. And then we set the stage for the next one, which will be principally focused on the Jack the Ripper story and how.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be good if people that are subscribed to the Substack. It's cool because you do Zoom meetings and there's like a bunch of people there. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, they are good. We're trying to basically provide the kind of education we weren't allowed to receive in the mainstream garbage brainwashing system, but we should have all had the right to a real education. So we're trying to do what little we can to provide some regular curriculum and like classes in session every Sunday for the Rising Tide Foundation. For those who want to take part in that, just reach out to us. We'll tell you how to do it.
So do you have a recommendation if I go to Cyber Monday and want to get an Edgar Allan Poe book? Do you have a recommendation for a beginner?
For what you mean? If you want to like read some Poe?
Yeah. What would you recommend?
Yeah. Well, it's pretty easy to find the collected works of Poe because he wrote a lot of short stories, which is why it's such a joy.
But what short stories would you recommend people go through first?
I would recommend, well, actually, one thing that can be done is in the movie, but also in the book, I'm going out of my way to try to like give little short summaries of the stories that I found to be the most important, at least that affected my mind in the most positive manner.
Mm-hmm.
And people could just take notes of whichever ones inspired them. But I would say definitely The Descent into the Maelstrom is a big one for me. Certainly, his I like the ones where he's like Cynthia did this brilliant class. It was like one of the first presentations or conferences that we did for the Rising Tide Foundation in 2019, right when we started the Rising Tide Foundation. We're like, let's do a conference at a university in Montreal on the real Edgar Allan Poe. And that was like the purpose. And Dave also, who made the movie, he was the third person. And the three of us made this conference and each one of us tackled like a different aspect. So Cynthia treated the story of the Imp of the Perverse, this tale that people often just brush over way too quickly without realizing the profundity of what Poe is doing in this tale. It's like a first person account. And I would say read The Imp of the Perverse for like the best psychological profile of the science of the mind of self-delusion. And ultimately, I think one of the core psych profiles of the oligarchy itself, it's in that tale.
Yeah, and Poe is clearly intervening, and he has a sense of humor. Like, I think that's also one of the sad things is people don't realize that he's being ironic in a lot of what he's writing about, and he's poking fun at things. You have to have some familiarity too with the kind of like political ecosystem he was operating in, but you don't have to like totally. But like in the case of the Imp of the Perverse, part of the back and forth on it is phrenology, which was really popular to like take in account, and it's coming back to take in account how a person's skull is shaped and determine whether they are a criminal or not. Actually, Matt has met someone recently who it was like really into this and is someone who like travels and gets around and everything. And they still have this belief system that's coming back that you can predetermine that someone is going to commit a crime
based on the physiology of their face.
Yeah,
and they're going to use AI.
Like a great idea. Yeah. So
like it's like the ears and stuff. I heard about this. Yeah, because I look into the Sampaku eyes. So I was like, I'm going to expand this, and I was like, I'm not going to touch this. This is kind of weird.
Yeah, so that's a nice short one though. It's super short, but you can see that he has a sense of humor, and I think that's a pretty good entry point. But other ones that are like that one are William Wilson, Black Cat, The Telltale Heart. They're all intervening on the fact that what makes someone a psychopath is that they lose connection to their conscience. The Jiminy Cricket voice in us. And in the case of the Imp of the Perverse, the guy who thinks he has committed the perfect crime, but then ends up confessing it, but he feels like he was hit on on his back, and he yells out the confession in public that he committed this murder, and he says he was like attacked by almost like a demon. It was his conscience, in the end, we find out, that actually forced his confession. So it's a totally different understanding of Poe when you realize that that's what's being intervened upon with these really famous stories like Black Cat and Telltale Heart. is the fact that we've lost connection to our conscience. Anyone who does this has the capability to commit the most atrocious crimes, but you're not born that way. No one's born a monster. And we're all born with a conscience that serves us well if we listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a picture of the Hunger Games. Speaking of books and stuff,
Yeah.
like that's gonna. And I was like, oh, it looks like a Knights of Malta.
Is that like the newest one?
Oh yeah. That's a Knights of Malta symbol.
And it looks like there's two eagles on it, kind of like the Habsburg, but I can't really see that much.
Yeah, I can't make it out. Is that Cynthia just asked it. Is that a new?
Yeah,
This
2020.
is the new one. Yeah, this one
Oh,
coming out in 2026.
of course.
And then this symbol, I don't understand. It's like an Ouroboros, sort of, but not really. Yeah, it kind of.
Yeah, it is, but it's not, right? Like an Ouroboros is the snake eating its own tail, but that one's got a bird in there. But...
Yeah. And then the sun rising over. So, like, learning about the symbols that you guys do on your Substack. Everybody go to their Substack and their YouTube channel. You guys post constantly. I really do enjoy the Rumble with Matt and that other guy. I always forget his name.
Yeah, I know. It's because he uses
Gordon,
this he uses this name, Ghost of the Base Patrick Henry, and it's not easy to stick in the mind. So I just call him Gordon because I'm uncomfortable calling him
Ghost.
somebody Ghost or
I do watch that like every day. It's like, you guys put out a lot of episodes, so it feels like it's every day. Really do enjoy that, and I want to thank everybody who sent the super chats. Even the homie I'm Harry Ludwig gifted 10 Donut Factory memberships, which is incredible. Wow. Like, you guys just been super supportive the whole show. Appreciate that.
Cool. Thanks, Harry Ludwig. I think he did maybe 20. I think he did like another batch of 10 earlier on. I remember that being.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. And people, if you grab these memberships, you get the private content. It's over on YouTube, and you get super cool stickers. Yeah, he did. He said 20 of them. He gave 20 memberships.
I knew it.
Wow.
You know what I'll do, which would be cool, because I like competition, and we're friends with David and Ryan Gosselin, both of them, here on the channel. That I'm going to do what he did with like the book. Maybe you two pick a book, and I'll make like a movie around it or something, and make it better than one. Because I like the competition to make you.
Oh, that's a healthy competition. Oh, yeah. That's glorious. Okay.
So pick a book or pick an article. It could be a Substack or whatever, and I'll turn it into a cinematic. I'll use AI and other stuff like that.
Wow. Okay.
Cool.
You're awesome, dude. All right, this is gonna be a fun experiment.
And thank you, 8 La Vera, 20 memberships. Wow. Make sure to go grab y'all books. Thank you both. Any closing? Where would you like people to go? What should they look out for, and all that? And here's another one. Like, it just keeps coming in. Hey, Donut, following you since the dawn of time, and honestly, I love your content. If I may ask, when do you think Freemasonry, which degree, turned Luciferian? That's a good question. I don't know. Like, it seems like the secret societies, Freemasonry is much older than what we're told, and it's just a secret society thing. And then one thing that stuck in my mind, and I can't prove this, so it's just hearsay, but when you're like in a secret society, you're given a ritual where it depends on what you choose. If you choose the right-hand path or the left-hand, you think that too?
Yeah,
Well, in Kingsman, right? In Kingsman, the ending of I think the first movie, where the girl, like, there's like, okay, you're at the very last stage, you know, it's between you and this other guy. Shoot the puppy. And like, I don't remember exactly if we're told whether she did it or not, but like one person chose not to shoot the puppy, and the impression was you chose the right path, and then the other person chooses to shoot the puppy, And it's like, you chose the right path. You get to go into the final. So they're both under the impression that they passed to the very final stage. So one person has this aspect, this idea that they're a part of something that ultimately has moral boundaries, whereas the other one's like, no, yeah, it's all about just getting to the goal, completing the mission, which is the most important thing. So I think you're spot on with what you just said there, Doenut.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
I
endorse that too. Yeah, and the whole point of Freemasonry, like you were saying, it's very ancient. It's not the same thing at all times. So what we know of the 18th century version versus like the proto, because the official modern Freemasonry, they say emerged in 1717, but it's like it existed under a different form. That's what the hidden seed was that the Moravians were operating out of. That's what the Rosicrucians were. So you had secret societies, and it seems like at some points in medieval times, you did have high quality minds and knowledge being passed down, and by necessity, because you're dealing with geopolitics, and in the real world, you do have to keep secrets, especially of technologies, in a sense, like the idea of what goes into cathedral building and a lot of the geometry that cat's too much. But a lot of the glorious geometry that involves a deep understanding of the laws of the universe, like the golden section and physical curvature, right? Like the idea of a hanging chain looks like a parabola, but it's not a parabola. Parabolic mathematics, parabolic functions will not help you when you're trying to calculate the rates of change that occur in a hanging chain. But a hanging chain gives you many more insights into the physical structure of reality. And especially it comes in very handy. And again, Cynthia did a great class in this back in 2016 on Brunelleschi's dome and the Santa Maria del Fiore dome, this beautiful dome in Florence, and how it was built using certain physical geometrical insights. That again, many of them were passed down in secret, because if the enemy got a hold of some of the work, the knowledge that you would have, you would be at a loss and you would be made vulnerable. But the thing I think that was a big negative turning point for a lot of these city builder networks that were passing down real knowledge, again, real education, but doing it in a way that by necessity is a secret. A lot of them were subverted when the Templars became increasingly powerful, dominant financiers and landholders, and started taking control of the city building operations, and especially the cathedral building. So that the Templars weren't the instigators of it, but they were co-opting it, and they were destroying it from within and trying to make that knowledge. They were trying to steal that knowledge, but without, I think, the earned quality of the Eureka. And they just wanted to take the effect of the knowledge and turn it into like hermetic symbolism and things that you might use in a initiatory ritual, but without actual knowledge of what causes the golden section to be discoverable, and what allows you to know the ratio of the golden section that you need to build a pentagon with. Right? You can't build a pentagon if you don't know the golden section. But so they want to skip those steps and just mystify things so that people can get into Kabbalah, they can go into trances with the help of drugs, a little bit of numerology and some bad philosophy, and basically become MK Ultra mind control schlubs. That's how they like doing it. So I think that the whole idea of secrecy has been a battle since probably ancient Egypt. At different times, these groups were animated by good people, and at other times they were animated by bad people. And that's the fight of the human condition so far. And it's not Manichaean. It's not like there's an equal power of good and evil, and that evil has like its own essence unto itself that counterposes the good. I'm not saying that, but there is good and evil that don't get along and that do shape the contour of the entire human experience. One is right and one is wrong. That's not Manichaean, in case anybody's thinking that.
And this happened, I believe, during the Renaissance, right?
This you could say as Cynthia gets across. Hey, she's got, look who's there.
The kitty cat. Oh my goodness, look at the kitty cat. Wow. It looks like a lion.
Yeah, he's big.
Pretty tall. Yeah.
He stretches out. He's like really. He can be like. He's probably like 3.5, 4 feet if you stretch him out.
Oh, yeah. That's amazing. Don't you have more than one cat, or do you just one?
No.
Well, the place we moved into, our housemate is allergic to cats, so it was already.
It was a compromise.
So we gave our other cat to a friend.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, it's not a good spot. So I was just reading about the plague and the Black
Oh,
Death.
just quick, yeah, that was the spark plug of the Renaissance. So Cynthia gets across her class. Your class is something like it's called the Apollo mission or something. I forget what you called it, but you said that this.
I would recommend, because like it's such an early video and the video quality is poor. But there is an article, and people can just look up Brunelleschi, search Brunelleschi on my Substack, and it's a short article on the story.
I was reading about the Library of Alexandria and Justinian and Sorel and the murder of Hypatia, and then this happened, which is great. But then we just went through in 2020 sort of the same kind of world lockdown, and then the big movement. It seems just like history repeating itself with all of these podcasters moving people into different religious institutions as the solution to the lockdown in a sense. And it seems like a repeating of that time. Maybe that's for another day.
Maybe. Unless you want to say something, Matt. Unless you want to say something quick. I think you're spot on with what you just said.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just seems like we're living through that time, and we just keep getting more super chats. So, Witzia says that she's got all of Matt and Cynthia's books. I'm a good friend of Jamie and MOD, and I also got them books. You got to get them. It's so funny. I was reading Matt's edition number 4 of
the Clash of the Two Americas.
Clash of the Two Americas, and it's all highlighted. And I'm going to Hawaii. I'm on a plane, and it's all like highlighted and all that stuff. And I forgot it on the plane, and I was upset. But then I was thinking about it. I was like, somebody's gonna like pick up this book and do all this underline and stuff, and they're gonna be like, what the heck? So if anyone's ever like, I stumbled across this book, that was me. And
actually, I gotta that's a fun positive way of looking at that scenario. I got a thought actually that I wanted to share that it popped in my head a couple of times as the show was going on, and the moment just wasn't right. But I think the moment's kind of right now based on what you just said. So we were talking about like Cynthia had said, they in MK Ultra they aspired to literally destroy completely, like fragment the identity to create some completely new personality, and because people are not machines that you could just simply go and do what a programmer would do and just reset, turn on and off, and it works all fine for a machine. But humans, despite the will of the oligarchy, we operate. There's other things going on that doesn't create that outcome. But there's ways where they can get more approximations. One of them is destroying the natural self-awareness of a people. So to develop real individuation, and like the maturity of the individuated personality, if it's going to be done well, it's usually because that person learns how to treat their conscience as a sacred part of their soul that animates and like tempers the choices that they make, the type of reason that as a muscle that they develop, and how the discernment faculties are always going to be organized by both conscience, that Jiminy Cricket, but also at the same time a self-reflexivity, this self-examination of the heart, of my assumptions, my motives. And as long as that self-reflexivity thing also accompanies the process, you generally get pretty good outcomes of pretty well-adjusted, individualized people who don't tend to go with a mob. They will not be the sorts of people who will, when the mob goes that way, go that way. Whereas when you break those aspects of the human, identity, when that is prohibited, then that person will become more mob-like. And I was thinking about the Pluribus show, which is sort of an homage. It's kind of like a sick joke in some ways of a whole society that completely, because of a so-called virus. Now we know that this is not, to get this effect, you don't need a physical virus to get people to become, you just got to get, woke Freemasons to take control. That's a bad way of saying it, but you got to just take control of the education system. You could create bad music, make really mediocre shit, corrupt things become cool. And you could definitely prohibit these things, put a lot of, make drug use and other things cool.
Yes.
And you could destroy those things and make people then feel like they're more individual, but they're actually more homogenized than they realize, and thus are more inclined to become the type of MK Ultra operatives that the oligarchy wants to create in their human robots. Now, the thing I was thinking about was we have a friend, and they were telling us a little bit about this Saint Anton. So the Knights Hospitaller that sort of took the control of a lot of the Templar institutions and money and that whole racket. They were kind of a sister operation to the Templars, and they had a sub branch called the Order of Saint Antonin. So it's a sub branch of the Hospitallers. Now, the Order of Saint Antonin is what gave the name to Saint Antonin's Fire. You ever hear what Saint Antonin's Fire during the medieval ages?
Oh, okay. No, I have not.
This is interesting because this is basically like, how LSD that was generated by the CIA and Sandoz Labs came out of experiments with air gut, like this blight that would occur on wheat, right? And they derived lysergic acid dithylamide. So Saint Anthony's Fire is a reference to basically a mass psychosis of the populations of Europe that would periodically happen due to the appearance of wheat ergot in wheat and flour. And there would be hallucinogenic, like, insanity when this would periodically hit different villages. And these were people on hallucinogenic LSD trips that they didn't realize what was happening. They just thought it was basically some demon infestation or something like that. And these Hospitaller Knights of St. Antonin became the experts in treating, and I think also probably developing the type of psychedelic drugs that were then deployed again and again, possibly in water systems and other things.
Wow.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, let's talk about hallucinogen. Yeah, there you go. This is a real thing, and I think they probably took a lot of the work on that, on human beings, bad tripping, feeling like because you'd feel like your body was on fire. That was like one of the effects on top of the hallucinogenics. It was just tapping into all of the bad bubbling crap inside of the subconscious and bringing it to life. So of course, people thought they were infested by demons. And yeah, I think this was applied to social engineering over the ensuing 800 years. But this is all over the medieval ages.
That's going to be a fun deep dive for me to look into that. That's wild.
Salem witch trials. Yeah, I think this is a big part of the witch covens too. It seems like that's, everywhere you look at witch covens, you'll find hallucinogenic drugs that are part of the rituals everywhere you look. And it's all over the Moravians as well, right? So what they're bringing in is already part of what was being brought in by some of these Rosicrucian sorcerer types that were trying to infest and take control of the new colonies, following the model of people like John Dee and Francis Bacon and their idea of what this new world was supposed to be, in opposition to the actual, patriots and humanists who had a very different idea and fought against the witch covens, which is where a lot of the stories of the battles by Cotton Mather and company against the covens and the Satanists was, I think, a big part and an underappreciated part of America's history, which is not as black and white as people think it was. There's a lot more nuance, and that also comes up in our Edgar Allan Poe documentary in a big way. So, bonus.
That's wild. I'm gonna definitely look into that, and I also want to thank the Freemason question that we got sent another super chat. $10 super chat. Thank you. Saying, I've met a man who told me that when you hit 33, that you must choose between werewolf and vampire. He does magic tricks that blow my mind. Lol. Maybe a link left and right hand path. Yeah, you know what's interesting? That that book, Communion, that they made the movie.
Yeah, the Whitley Strieber book.
Yeah, that I was like, oh, Communion, then I was listening to Robert Anton Wilson, the comedian who does the Illuminatus.
The Illuminatus. Yeah.
And I was listening to a podcast he had with Mishlove, and he was like, I don't understand what's so special about Strieber. How come these aliens keep wanting to do it with him? Like it was really funny. But I looked up Strieber's older books, and he wrote about werewolves, and he wrote about different, strange topics. So that isn't really known. So he's
Jason Horsley did a really great book called Prisoner of Infinity, and I interviewed him, and in that book he spends a lot of time going through Strieber's development, and he makes a clear case that Strieber was actually molded in the Process Church of Final Judgment from 1966 to 68. And that book right there. And the Process Church of Final Judgment, that's the satanic church. That's a spinoff of the Scientologists, the Church of Scientology back in 62, right? And when they seated themselves in New Orleans first, and then in New York, and then in California, they kind of took over the culture. They interfaced with Kenneth, what's his name? Anger. Kenneth Anger.
Yeah.
But also Charles Manson, Anton LaVey. There's actually a book that we have, which makes a pretty good case that even Colonel Michael Aquino from the Temple of Set was a participant of the Zodiac murders in New York, which were part of the
and also part of Operation Phoenix.
This is the guy who goes on to become a top figure in the Green Berets in Operation Phoenix in Vietnam that Cynthia writes so much about. And that guy then becomes the head of the Temple of Set. He's Anton LaVey's second in command. He then becomes the head of Mind Wars. And the guy that co-writes the Mind Wars paper that revamps the U.S. military is, what's his name? I'm forgetting his name all of a sudden. It'll come to me. But that guy is...
Who are you asking about?
The guy who co-wrote the Mind Wars paper that Michael Aquino wrote for General Stubblebean. Paul Vallée, that's him. Paul Vallée. He's currently one of the top advisors of Turning Point UK.
Oh, right? Well, isn't that the Turning Point UK? That's the Candace Owens.
Yeah. That's Candace Owens' husband. Yeah, runs the Turning Point UK. The Charlie Kirk thing. And so this guy is a top advisor to that. Also, the other top advisor is a guy who's a Christian Scientologist. Keep in mind, Process Church comes out of Scientology, which Scientology comes out of Hubbard, and Hubbard being, the apostle or the follower of Aleister Crowley. Not a coincidence. So these Crowleyites are just spread out everywhere. And the fact that the murders of the Zodiac were probably done as an outgrowth or by the Process Church and its network. Yeah,
I said Berkowitz, that's Son of Sam, but it's still satanic. He said they didn't do it alone, but interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you got something on serial killers, that'd be cool to do a video on, because the serial killer thing, first, it's a hot topic. People love serial killers because they're all sick, and so that would be cool. Just to throw that out there. I know that'll go viral.
Well, there's that book by
I'm looking for it as well.
It's on that bookshelf right next to you, Cynthia, but it's at the top. But there's that book by what's the guy who did the
Canyon book?
Yeah, exactly. You saw that book, right?
I've never read it, but I've seen it.
That's a really intense read.
Okay.
By what's his name? David
McGowan, I think?
David McGowan? Yeah. Doug McGowan? Doug McGowan. Doug McGowan, right? Anyway, that book he did before the Laurel Canyon book, and yeah, he proves that every single case of serial killers for the last 100 years in America, every single case has ritual black magic of some form or another involving it. It's none of these cases of serial killers occurred because you had just a naturally sociologically emerging like psychopath who just was obsessed with killing for killing's sake. That is a lie that we've been told to paint our image that human nature is evil by design.
Mm-hmm.
It's always Satanists in cults who are doing it for ritual satanic reasons. That's a big deal.
People.
Or MK Ultra, but in this that's usually involved, right? It seems like MK Ultra and Satanists are also tied together. But yeah, this is
Jeffrey
not.
Dahmer had a satanic altar. Satanic murders, or
the fact that Tony Podesta has like a bronze statue of Jeffrey Dahmer. Like, yeah, these are nuts. Yeah,
I'm going to check out that book. Well, I appreciate both of you for being here. Thank you so much. This has been fun. Now I'm rich. This is crazy. So I might be retiring. But I'll put together.
But that's great, because now you volunteered to do a film, and like,
I'll do the film for
right? No, I'm joking.
Yeah, for sure. I'll go to New Zealand, like the Harry Potter writer, and make the documentary. Well, thank you both. Where should people go?
Yeah, we'll see you come back with like a coagula and what's the other one that
dissolve?
Yeah, Solvin, coagula on your tattooed on your arms all of a sudden.
Like, no way, I can't do that.
J.K. Rowling, that's what she did, right?
She did that. Oh,
well, no, it's not on her arms. It's on her hand,
on her wrist or something,
Solvin, or on her wrist. Yeah, the Solvin coagula.
I didn't know that. No, I want to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. My parents would be upset. But that doesn't stop me. I always wanted to get a tattoo, just I never got one. So
I came close, but
people can find me on Through Glass Darkly, Cynthia Chung Substack, and risingtidefoundation.net is we also have a Rising Tide Substack. So yeah, that's where they can find that content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and people can go to CanadianPatriot.org or MatthewEhret.substack.com for books by Cynthia and myself. And most of our videos are free. The newest ones we usually put behind a paywall for a little bit, so you might have to pay a little bit on our Substack, like $5 a month, to watch it. But we think it's worth it. And then somebody just said Tony Podesta has a bronze statue of Dahmer. No, I misspoke. He has a picture of Dahmer's victims. Sorry, that just to be clear on that. But yeah, that's.
He has pictures of his victims,
like gold statues.
It's actually so it's like this artist who draws stuff like that, but it was exactly how Dahmer put his victims too. So there's like this weird art connection to it as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, click those links below. Appreciate both of you. It's Doenut. Much love and God bless you.